setting up to play. First, we have our bass out and ready, out of the case, in front of us. We have down here, and to pick up the bass, you grab it by the neck, and you hold the side, and you lift up carefully. As you lift up carefully, you walk up with the bass. See? And then you have it right up next to your side. When you're done playing with your instrument, setting down your bass is the same way you set up. You have your bass on your hand, and you walk to the left and carefully place it down. You'll feel the bass touch the floor, and gently put it on the floor. It should not crash. Nice and gentle. Next we're going to talk about is rosining your bow. You have your bow ready. When you play your bow, you must tighten your bow. So you must tighten the bow to the right and loose to the left. Since we're about to play, we are going to tighten our bow so that we're screwing it away from us. Then we take out our bass rosin. Our bass rosin should be stored carefully, nowhere too hot nor cold, because bass rosin is not like your average violin and viola rosin. Bass rosin is much more sensitive and it is much softer. So, how much rosin we put onto the bow? We don't know, unfortunately, because we're not allowed to touch our horsehairs with our fingers. If we touch our horsehairs with our fingers, the little dirts and grease on our fingers get onto the bow hairs, and then it makes it harder for us to play because it gets slippery and dirty. So what you do is, you let your bow glide on the rosin like you're bowing, and then you'll be able to hear the friction of the rosin and the bow hit. Now, adding the amount of rosin, like I said, we don't know. So, rosin is sticky. So, the way to check if you have enough rosin is we go, after we're done putting rosin, we check on our bass, and we check on our bow. It should feel sticky and hard because the rosin is on the bow. So it should have a grabbing feeling. If it's not grabbing, it's making that wishy-washy sound. That means we don't have enough rosin. And that's when you have to put more rosin on your bow. Up to the point where you have enough rosin and the bow is grabbing onto the string. Then we will have a nice tone coming from our bow. One more thing I forgot to mention about your bow. Tightening it. Your bow, when you tighten it, it should not be completely straight. When you tighten it, it should still have a nice arc. If it's too straight, when you can put it against the floor, you see the bow is directly on the floor, no space, then that is too tight for the bow, and that causes tension in the bow, potentially having it to break. If you have it too loose, you'll be able to see that the stick of the bow is touching the strings of your bass. So make sure you turn your bow, tighten it about 4 to 6 times. If needed, then 2 or 3 more. Now that we have your bass set up for playing and your end pin is adjusted to your height, you should also have your stand in front of you. Your stand should be about an arm's length away from you, so if you have to write onto your music, you won't have to reach far. Also, the stand height. The stand height must be for your eyes directly, and for when we were ready to return back to school, to see the conductor. You should be able to see the conductor over your stand. You don't want your stand too low, because if your stand's too low, you'll find yourself looking down, up, down, up. The motion of looking down the music and up in the conductor. You will need to have your stand high enough so that you can see your music directly in front of you, and you still look with your eyes a little bit, see the conductor in front of you. Now, for our smaller bass players, or our younger bass players who still can't reach the neck as they play, there is the option of being able to sit down on a high chair or a stool, which gives you a little more height for you to be able to reach that. The only difference is from when you have a high chair, you will be sitting down and the base will lean a little bit more onto you, almost like a cello. In a moment, I'll show you a picture of what a stool looks like. Now, as I mentioned, for our smaller youth bass players who can't reach our bass, here's an example of a stool that's potentially the perfect size or a good size for you to be able to reach your bass neck comfortably. Now, when we are done playing, don't forget to loosen your bow, which means you turn the screw towards the left, which is towards your face. We loosen the bow so it does not wear out the horse hairs, and later on we'll still be able to use our bow throughout our practices. Now, our stands for our instrument. We want to stand next to our instrument, both of our feet apart from each other. Left and right foot should be nice and steady. You should not put weight on one foot than the other. Now you get your left foot, you put it behind the bass and let it rest on your side. Next, arm. Arm should not be down here because then that means you're stressing on the entire hand, forcing it down. So as you reach for your fourth finger, it's going to be harder. So that's when you move the arm up, and that'll allow your fingers to be more stretched out and easier to push down on the strings of the bass. And one more thing, your fingers, your joints, make sure they're nice and round into this C form. You want to be on the balls of your finger rather than collapsed on the bass itself, because that makes it more muddy. If I grab the bass and I'm down this position, it's harder to play because my pinky is down. But if I have it up, where I can allow my pinky to feel and curve, it's much easier, but it's allowing me to reach. To review one more time, our legs are apart, left leg behind the bass, and arm up. Your hand should also be almost parallel to your face too. So if I squat down just a little bit, it should be close to your face. Not too low, not too high where it's hard for you to reach. We're going to talk about transitioning from Arco to Pitts with our French and German bow. So let's start first with our French style bow. We are in our position where we're holding our bow and we're arcoing. Now it transitioned to Pizzicato. That's when we grab the bow around. The thumb will come around too. Pointing finger will come out. Thumb will just naturally come out of this grip. As you hold, it comes out naturally. That's when you place the thumb on the fingerboard. Use pointing finger to pluck, pull up. The other fingers will wrap around the bow. See? And to get out of this position, we rotate. And as you rotate, you make sure you get the pinky back on, because that's you're going to slide it back to the top of your fingers, and you're going to slide everything back into its original position. Slowly again, gripping, thumb is out, your pointing finger is out, and you pluck. Going back into Arco, thumb is going back under the grip, fingers will rotate, and bow will start rotating back into its original position. One more time. Grip, out, pointing finger. Back to Arco. Rotate, thumb back on the bow, and fingers back into your comfortable position. Now, next is our German style bow grip, coming with Arco to Pitts. This one's a bit more tricky than the French bow because you have to drop the bow, and as you drop, pinky gets away from where it originally is at the bottom and scoots into, it'll scoot inside with it. So it goes from here to inside as you drop. Watch the motion as it drops. See how these four fingers are now together rather than 3 versus 1 pinky separate? Now, the thumb is the same concept. It's going to be on the fingerboard, and you're going to use the pointing finger to pluck. And let's try it again. Watch slowly. We have the grip, drop, pinkies in, 4 fingers together, thumb and pointing finger away from the fingers. Now going back up, since we just dropped it, we're going to have to push back up. So you're going to have to move the pinky as you go. Watch slowly as I go up, then use the gravity pulling up to let the fingers come back into the original position. I like that. This will take some getting used to. So I recommend, if you going up and down carefully, make sure not to drop your bow. You have to get into this motion and practice it. It's not just like French bow where you can just go drop, where you just grab it. This is a drill where you have to learn to drop and come back into this formation. So slowly, 4, pinky, thumb. I'm going to grab this side of the bow so you can see in slow motion as it's going up. Pinky slowly goes under. Those 3 fingers go back in its original position. And thumb is back on top to where it belongs. Slowly I grab the bow again. Watch it drop. Watch my thumb come out. My pointing finger and pinky moves out. See? And as I come back in, it goes back in that comfort zone. Slowly and surely, you'll keep this in your mind. But this is an exercise you will have to continue doing. Transitioning is going to be a bit of a terror. Now, finally, we are done playing our instruments. Make sure when you're done playing your instrument, you wipe down the instrument with a cloth where your fingers have been, around the strings, the neck, and don't forget down here in the strings, because that's where the rosin is. You have to wipe away the excess rosin off the strings and the bass itself. Otherwise, it will start creating grime or residue on the instrument, which does not allow it to vibrate. The less the instrument vibrates as a whole, the smaller the sound will be. Next thing, with your bow, make sure when you play, you tighten your bow. Otherwise, you'll be hitting the stick, the wood of the bow. And as you're done playing with your bass, make sure not to forget to loosen the bow. You have a screw at the end of your bow, right to tight, left to loose. Make sure the bow is loose when you're done playing. Otherwise, the hairs will get worn out. For our German bow, it's the same way, but if you look at your German bow, it doesn't look like a screw. But I guarantee you it will be a screw, and you will have to rotate it. You have to rotate it right, just like the German bow, just like the French bow, to tight and left to loose. So make sure you keep it. Also make sure to maintain your instrument in a nice, cool, dry area, as our instruments do not like weather change. It will mess up the tuning and the instrument itself, so be very aware of where you keep your instrument. Thank you for watching. Keep practicing and stay safe.